Thank you very much. And boy, what a tough way to follow a morning between Art and Scott and Enrique and the crypto guys and the awards. It's really a tough position to be in, but I'm really happy to be here and thank all of you for inviting me and attending. You know, it's interesting. It's great to be back amongst those that are really making a difference. And a lot of people have asked about sort of the history of RSA. And if I'm not mistaken, this is somewhere around the 14th or 15th RSA event that I've been to. And, you know, we all know things have changed dramatically over the years. And one of the things that I think relative to RSA specifically that I was talking about yesterday was just even getting here, how things have changed. Because I remember in the early days when I first signed up for RSA, we had some devices that we don't use that very much today. And you're probably familiar with them. As a matter of fact, I think they're called a pen, a piece of paper, and a fax machine. You actually somehow got a piece of paper, you filled out your name, you faxed it into someone, and they later on somehow confirmed magically that you were coming. You know, but that was also the years, and that's what, I think this is the 19th year of RSA, so a big anniversary coming up. But that was also the years that we were looking, and for those who remember, sort of the Dockmaster years, where we had the National Computer Security Center, and we had a big computer system. A lot of us were involved in the early entries into the Internet and the ability to do that. And it's funny when you start thinking about how much we've collaborated, how much we've worked together over the years. A lot of it goes back to the early Dockmaster days. Matter of fact, one of the early intrusion detection systems was built around the Dockmaster work. We had a lot of cooperation. We had private industry. We had academics. We had intelligence community. We had law enforcement. We had other interested people who were putting together. And that was all back in the early days of RSA. But I think there's another component, too, that I want to also mention is sort of trying to somehow bring this together. Scott had mentioned the World Health Organization. And all of us can sit here and just as we get 20 lawyers in a room, we get 20 different opinions how things work. It's the same thing with us in security. Put 20 of us in a room and figure out the best way forward, we'll get 20 different opinions. So we're always trying to coalesce with some sort of, what's it sound like in the real world? And Vince Cerf, obviously a great person, a good friend, and I were talking a few weeks ago, and he brought up something about a fire department. Now, clearly when we look at the fire department, we think, oh, it's the emergency response. We're good at that. But also I have to realize, and I ask you to think about this for a moment, not only are we really good at the response, but in so many different ways, we've done a better job being proactive. And that's been the theme of what Art said, what Scott said, what Enrique said, about being proactive. So I want to just take a few minutes, hopefully not boring you too badly, about sort of the comparison with the fire department and the fire world. If you think back historically, something would catch on fire, it would burn to the ground. People oftentimes would go around and say, gee, it's bad, it burned to the ground, we have to go rebuild it. And they said, well, we need to do something about this. So they started to build communities next to bodies of water. That made a lot of sense. They were closer to the things that it took to fix things. We see that in our development community today. The early days of development, we were just doing it on our own. Remember the first program I ever wrote trying to do Earth communications for ham radio stuff? There were no guidelines. We weren't close to the river, didn't know anything about security. But we developed it. And the same thing, they started moving closer to where the resources were. So we actually created communities of people coming together in the development world. And sort of the next piece that was recognized, well, that's well and good. But the fire starts, you run down to the river, by you get back, you may save an outbuilding, but oftentimes it's too late. So they started to build the volunteer fire departments and building in places where water was stored close by and actually start to train people. Well, isn't that what we've been doing? We've been taking the great talent, the rich and robust capabilities that we have in the development world and saying we're going to do better training. We're going to get these resources together. We're going to give you the tools, give you the training, give you the ability to make the tight code, make the budget deadlines, and all the things that are sort of the pressure points on people doing things. And just like did in the fire world. We trained these people to come together. And so not only were we then at that point able to protect the outbuildings, we had a better chance of recovering things that would be lost forever had we not done that. But that wasn't enough, and we know that. So what did we decide to start doing? We started looking at what are the things that really happen. Well, things are flammable. So the next thing is, well, how do we make them less flammable? Same thing in our world. How do we make things more resistant to some of the attacks that we've seen? We no longer have the debate that we had at one time is, why in the world would someone type in 259 characters into this thing? Because they can, because it breaks things. The same thing applies there. We start building things that are less flammable, we save lives. So what happens? We have a better ability to recover. But was that enough? No. Just like in our world, that's not enough yet. So we start to look a little bit further than that. So what happens because we have to use materials that are flammable. In our world, we have to do things that sort of escape from what we used to call the barriers and the firewalls and sort of the, building everything behind a wall. And we need to go outside. We need to conduct business. We need to have the ability to go out and touch on things that we need today. And so what they did in the fire prevention world, they started building sprinkler systems. So if indeed the things that you needed to do would fail for some reason, we had an ability to save things, to be able to fix it and then just move on. And that's where we are today. And I don't care what anybody says out there. It's the work that the companies you work for, that the work that you're doing, that the developers, the people that are entrepreneurs looking in this space, you're making the difference. Not somebody with the doom and gloom predictions that things are falling apart. Quite the contrary. You all are the ones that are making the difference. And I think in that vein, we have to fully recognize that the importance that cybersecurity has had in so many different aspects of our lives on a day-to-day basis. There was a discussion this morning about sort of, I think it was Art talk about being sandwiched in between, Scott, between two factions, the kids and the mother. Well, you know how it is. We're the CIO for our neighbors and friends. We're the ones that get the calls when things don't work right. And those calls oftentimes are things relative to cybersecurity. So as a consequence, you are the ones that are making the difference. But all with that, we recognize that there's a part that the government and industry needs to work together with. And surprisingly enough, I'm not going to stand here and talk about private-public partnerships are important or developing strategies. We've been down that road so many times. What I want to talk to do today is talk a little bit now, and what I'm especially proud to do is talk about sort of the role that we're taking as we're moving forward. Because one of the things that I'm very particularly proud of is the fact that I'm here representing President Obama as his cybersecurity coordinator. In this role, which I think is an important role, and obviously I'm not doing this alone, I'm working across all the different aspects of federal government, coordinating the development of a harmonized and systemized cybersecurity policy. I work across the federal leadership, from the intelligence, the law enforcement, the defense, the civilian agencies, and all the government communities to make sure that basically we're doing what we need to do when it comes to cybersecurity efforts that are, once again, harmonized, effective, and efficient. But we can't do it alone once again. There's a key role for our legislators in this. And I know when Jim and Harry and Scott were up here talking about the commission that Phil on the award, there were two congressmen up there that are very instrumental in this. So clearly we're working with Congress to make sure that we've got a role helping guide and shape what their role is. And of course our industry leaders, foreign nations, and state and local governments. Well, obviously we're all in together. Because we recognize that all these vulnerabilities are shared. And we have to partner together to make sure that cyber networks are secure, trustworthy, and resilient. I also make sure that we work closely with Vivek Kundra, the CIO of the government, and Anish Chopra, the Federal Chief Technology Officer. And there's a couple of reasons. One, we fully recognize in talking with them that security is not something you build on later. It's got to be built into what we're doing. So as Anish is moving forward, looking for new technologies, not only within the government but outside, how do we make sure as we have this discussion about the next generation of FOO, whatever FOO may be, that is done in a secure and privacy-protecting manner? And I've really come to respect their understanding of the issue because they're part of the partnership. I also have a responsibility with the National Economic Council, and I think that's vitally important. Everybody in this room knows that security is just not a very binary thing that we look at. You do security and nothing else matters. We have to recognize that our cybersecurity policies have to be well aligned, so we're looking at the digital networks so they remain robust and resilient,